Right. So, what we are going to discuss about this Jira Compass. So, this is something which is useful for the development team to understand about the health of the work what they are doing. This is one of the tool, especially powered by Atlassian Corporation, because Jira we use normally for bug tracking, project tracking, and bug tracking, all that. At the same time, we have other tools for Bamboo, which is for release management, and Confluence for document collaboration, and Jiffer is for test cases, all that. In connect to that, here you can see there is of Compass, which are normally used for the developers. So whenever they wants to know about the health of the work, what they are doing, so that the quality deliverables and the quality outputs is what something which they can prepare out of it. In connect to this, if you want to work on the Compass, there are three major areas we need to focus on. One is about connecting to the source code, because if we want to connect the, we have to create a components for different catalogs for different repositories, because whatever the source code was created, and this can be maintained in GitHub, right? So we can connect to the GitHub, because GitHub is one of the repository to maintain the source code of our projects. At the same time, Bitbucket is also for source code purpose will be used. At the same time, GitLab. So these are all the different applications which are used to manage for source code purpose. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of component catalogs from the source code repositories or from the project files, all that. So we have to create catalog. That is also another thing we do. We can do it through Compass. At the same time, one is something which is majorly used for communication purpose and all everything is what something which we can use it. Now, in reference to this here itself, wherein here we need to update the activities, what are the activities you require, right? What are the creation of components, right? So different components can be created. For example, here I'm creating a component here, right? So create component, right? So what kind of service we have to select? Is it an application, right? Or it is an independently developable software? Or is it a library, right? So or is it a data pipeline, right? So or is it is a website, right? So that's what something which we have to be understand with. Okay, so deployable software by the service or something like so. Service I'm selecting, right? So API integration is what something which the name I have given for a particular component. So here we need to select the name, right? So whoever owner for the project and all. If you want to create a team, we can have an option where we can create the team. Or else, let's say, for example, whatever the team we have, right? So the team can be, right? So normally for this Compass to create, we need to select which project we are working. For example, Academy POS is the project we are working on. And whatever the health of the work we are doing is something relating to Academy POS, so that we have to select owner team on this. Next, if there is any repository, we can paste the link here and we can click on create. So, right. So this is how generally this API integration, which is the component under the services and all everything is created here. So here we need to write down the description here, right? So API integration, not required. API integration to communicate with two different applications. And here we are using RESTful API. Okay, RESTful API to create API for this project. Okay. Right. So that's what I have just selected. Right. So project. Right. So description was mentioned. Next here, if you want to create any kind of labels, or if you want to sync with any JSM and all everything, here we can create. For example, I'm just creating a label called API. Okay. At the same time, I'm creating one more API, one more label called RESTful. SOAP API, I'm just creating one more label. Next, integration. So, right, so integration is one more label, right? So these are the labels I have created. And whatever the activity we want to perform, means if you want to see all the performance of the particular project and all everything, is what something which we have to be understood with, right? So next we need to add the life cycle stage. Here you can see life cycle stage. For example, life cycle stage is something called active. Okay, as of now it is in the state of active, or else pre-release. Pre-release means before you are going for a release of a particular functionality. For example, API integration we are creating. If you are going for any pre-release and all, so this option, but I'm just selecting an option called active, right? So or else if you can create, we can clear the life cycle stage later. So I'm just creating active here. So tier 2 is what something which API for API I have created. Yeah, I can put this as it is. Okay, you get it, right? So here we can see the activities. What are the activities if we created any, right? So any activities were created by it, right? So for example, if you want to add any kind of deployment, right? So here, if you want to add any kind of deployments and all, so here we have to uh, add the deployments. Add the deployments using API is what something, right? So using API is what something which I'm selecting, right? So using API is what something I'm selecting over here. So for the deployment purpose, I'm talking about. So add deployment is what something I'm using API is what something we am selecting. Or else if you are working with the GitHub and all, here we have to install the GitHub. So deploying of a particular functionality or a piece of work, what we have done so far, and how this can be executed, right? So before we are submitting the whole work what we have completed to the customer, we have to manage the source codes, etc. So for that we can connect to GitHub, wherein if you required any installation to be made, because GitHub is a source code repository to manage the source codes and all everything, we can install it, right? So that is one thing we can do it. That is upon our requirements. And at the same time, if there are any dependencies to be added for the existing project, right? So we need to search out for example, if you want to map our software infrastructure in context to API integration and all, we need to search for the components. For example, creating a new component, right? So we already created a component wherein depending on API integration, so what kind of services and all everything, this component can be created. So that is one thing which we can do. Or else we can take a demo service, which is called add dependency. Right. So this is where generally the dependencies were created, right? So here the demo services, which is we have to create. At the same time, if you want to add owner team, so this is the team which we have added, right? So cat wise is what something. Now we can simply, yeah, here you can see this is how generally this mapping, right? So demo services by API integration, this is how generally this mapping is what something we do in context to the relationships if you want to build for any of the components and all everything and all. So here you can see this is where something we did, right? So here we have to see the DevOps. Yeah, here we can see the scorecard, right? So we have to see the scorecard, right? So if, for example, DevOps, right? So DevOps environment was not initiated by us in the project. Okay, if it is DevOps environment, either it can be Jenkins integration or Kubernetes, right? So all these integrations can be done. As in whenever I have taken this project, whenever we are choosing the service car API integration, I have not taken any DevOps integration. Okay, if you remember, I have not done anything so far. That's the reason why it is showing as DevOps health is failing 25% because we have not done so far. Next, component readiness. We have created limited components, not full components. That's the reason why component readiness is 60%, which requires attention more. So to add something of that sort is what something we can connect with. So this is how generally this health of a particular service, what we are working on, can be done using this compass in Jira, especially useful for the developers when they are working on the agile environment. This is what something which we have to be known with. This is all about this video. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, please reach out to the contact details, which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.